everyone, it is Mona here at Craft Klatch, and today's Friday. That means it is another Coaster Friday. Today we're going to be doing an old-fashioned Paris themed coaster, and it's a little bit different than anything we've done before. We're going to kind of use some wire to freeform our frame, and if you want to know where I got the inspiration for this one, I will have that link down in the description below. So I have this wire. I bought it at Hobby Lobby, and it's a flat wire, and it's got kind of a coppery color to it. So I'm going to unwind some of them. I'm going to cut it about here. I have no plan in mind, just a general theme. And you could shape this into any shape that you want. So I think I'm going to kind of twirl some of this around, kind of close it up here. I just want to make sure it's big enough for a mug. And I'll take another piece of wire, and I'm going to just create another shape within here, and I will do that again. Alright, I want it to look pretty much just like this, more or less, and have little compartments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ultimate glue, because it dries clear, and you can use any glue that you want that will dry clear, and I'm going to more or less just seal these seams. So where it comes together, I'm going to just add a little bit of the glue. You don't want it to be goopy, but you definitely want it to seal. And I'm going to do that on this curly Q in here. The nice thing about this particular glue is it is nice and thick. So if you put it somewhere, you got a good chance of it staying where you put it. And then this one I'm actually going to attach to the larger circle. Now we need to let that just dry for a while until everything is nice and attached. The glue has dried on all of the seams, so now all I'm going to do is take some packing tape, and I'm going to line the bottom then we're going to decide where we want to have this piece. I think we'll go like that, and now I'm going to press all of it down. Then I'll take some more tape and go the other direction, and then I'm going to rub it down and make sure it's made contact with all of the metal pieces. Now I did this on a piece of paper, and now I'm going to cut off the paper, and it's stuck there. And I'll tell you why in a minute. If you're working with tape, you'll find out that you're going to have it stick to you, and then all of a sudden you're going to keep flipping your piece, and when that's full of resin, that's kind of a real pain. So I'm figuring if I can get paper stuck around here to the tape, I'm a lot less likely to flip my piece. And now we can start working on filling it in. As an additional precautionary measure, I put silly putty around the outside, and that is just to make sure in case something isn't quite as attached to the tape as I'm hoping it is, that will prevent it from leaking out and losing all our resin. So I've mixed my resin, and I have about 2 ounces, which is more than I'll need. I think 1 ounce would be plenty. And I have my pigment powders. I'm going to add some blue to this one. So it's a nice French blue. I'll add some of this gold to this one, also very pretty. Then we'll add a little bit of this purple too. Now I'm going to drip these colors into various areas of our project here. And you just want to make sure you get the bottom layer here covered. And you just need a thin coat, and you can spread it around a little bit if you need to. Then you're going to want to take your lighter and pop the bubbles. Then we'll let this sit a minimum of 12 hours, and we'll come back and we will do our next layer. We have our first layer down. We can take off the silly putty now. You can see we did have a little leakage here, so it did help. It did keep it in place. So that is always a good thing, and we'll clean that up at the end. Now what I'm going to do is just add stuff to it. I have some papers, some old-timey papers. Since we're going with a French theme, I have the Eiffel Tower here, and I have it larger here. I might use this old time fancy lady. So I think I'm going to cut out maybe this larger stamp and maybe part of the postcard. Then I have some cardstock with musical notes. And then you just start trimming pieces so they fit. And we don't want to cover the whole thing because we want some of that background in there too. So I think that's all the images that I'm going to use. And now what we need to do is Mod Podge it into here. And I'm going to use the Super Gloss Mod Podge because that goes on clearer than anything else. I'll start with the fancy lady, brush some on the back. And the whole point of Mod Podging these into place is to seal them so that when we do put resin over it all, that they don't get blotchy. So I'm going to put her in. I'm going to brush over it. And I'm going to repeat that with the remaining images. Now I'm putting Mod Podge everywhere, and then we're just going to add some little pieces to the wet Mod Podge. And I like to go to the clearance section at the craft stores, and I always find little pieces that I'll end up using in future projects. Sometimes you find some really nice bezels there. And don't overlook like the small jewelry because those are perfect in resin projects. I found this for 75 cents at Hobby Lobby, and there's a little Eiffel Tower in there. And it's the perfect size. For 32 cents I found this little fleur-de-lis, and that's very French, I believe. I'm going to have to trim the back off of that because it's a little high. There's a post on the back and it's going to be too high. And then for 43 cents I found these. They're actually little charms. So I'm going to pop that right off. I'll add a little Mod Podge to the back of these items. And it can dry right along with everything else. And then I know it'll stay in place. Now that it's dried a little bit, I actually want to add some little micro beads. And I can add them right in with the resin, but I'll have a little bit more control now. And I'll take a little bit of the Mod Podge. And like here at the edge of where this cutout is of this fancy lady, I think I'm going to add a little bit of red actually. And I'm going to put it on my hand to control it a little bit. And sprinkle it in. So if I put some of that there, I'm probably going to want it in another spot too. So maybe I'll just do it in the corner here. And I'm going to add some bugle beads too. And you can add as much or as little as you want. And just like I used the picture of this lady, you can certainly personalize this with like old family photos or anything like that as well. So keep adding until you get it just the way you want it. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of paint over that fleur-de-lis just to, maybe just around the edge, just to take down the silver a little bit because it seems to really stand out more than anything else. And we want to age it up a little bit. So I'm going to do that and just see if I feel like adding any more little bits and pieces and bubbles and whatever. And when that's all dry, we'll come back and do our final pour and finish her up. All of this has dried and I've shaken off any excess beads or anything that might be loose. And I've mixed more resin, and I think it'll take maybe an ounce. And I'm going to drip it all right on in here. I'm going to make sure it gets to the edges. Everything will be nice and sealed. Once you have everything filled, you want to be careful not to bump the table. And I'm going to take my lighter, and I'm going to be very careful when I do this, because I know I have paper around the edges still. And I want to pop the bubbles. Make sure you get all the way to those edges. And you want to come back every once in a while because you never know, a bubble might pop up. And then you're going to want to let this just set for 12 hours. And then we'll come back and take the backing off, and hopefully everything will have turned out pretty nice. Once it's cured, you can just pull that tape right off the back. If you have any rough edges like I do here where it did happen to run under, so you can sand this down, or I'm going to just take my Dremel, cut it off. And if you've been on the fence about getting a Dremel, they do come in very handy. Here it is all finished, and some of the edges have a little bit of nicks and marks on it from the Dremel. So you can either leave the distressed look, or you could take a multi-surface paint, or you could take like a rub and buff. This happens to be a gold, and the rub and buff is just a metallic wax, and you could use a paint instead, whatever you want to do. I'm going to take a little bit on a paper towel and rub the edge. So that's it. Be sure to let me know what you think of it down in the description below. That's our Paris old-timey themed coaster. You can see the bugle beads in there. You can see those little micro beads. So be sure to let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Hope you guys like the Paris coaster, and I hope you find some inspiration. Thanks so much for being here, and I will definitely see you next time. Remember, life is too short not to shimmer, so grab your glue gun and your glitter. Stay safe. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.